avoiding difficult things. That is what we're talking about today. So if you are brand new to me, my name is Susan McVeigh, and I am a married mom of two and a business sales and wealth strategist. And on this channel, we talk about business, money, and self-improvement with the ultimate goal to make your life better. Because what's the point in having more money if you don't have more freedom, right? And ultimately, that's why you're here. So today's topic is about doing difficult things, overcoming challenges, but thinking about day-to-day sorts of things. Because I don't know about you, but my day isn't always filled with sunshine and roses and unicorn poop. It is filled with real life things. That means challenge. It means struggle. It means getting in my own way. It means that oftentimes, there's a lot of things that are on my plate that I simply don't want to do. Or I have other things that need to be done. And then the things that I really want to do, like showing up on this video, end up being pushed to later in the day than what I would have liked. So there's three things that I want to talk about. This will be a fairly short video. If you are on the replay or on the live, please feel free to say hello. And you can always feel free to add your questions or your comments below in the comment box. And if you do have any specific questions that I can answer for you, I will definitely come back in and do that. Or if it's longer, then maybe what I can answer thoroughly in a comment, then I may pick that up and use that for a follow-up video conversation. So there's three things that I want to talk about that might be helpful for you because they certainly have helped me today. And I had something that I had to do that I kind of wanted to avoid, in all honesty. It was something that I didn't really enjoy the thought of having to do. And because I know myself, I had already baked in some things because I knew that it was something that I needed to do. So let me know, have you ever had something where you know that you have to do it, right? Like, yes, you get to do it. We can reframe it and all that stuff, but it's something that you cannot avoid. It's something that must get done. And it doesn't diminish the fact that it is difficult or that you would rather not do it. Have you ever had a situation like that, whether it's in life, your relationships, your health, your business, your career, maybe with your kids or your partner, a best friend, even with yourself, where there's something where you know that you need to do it, and yet it's a struggle. It is something that is challenging. It is something that feels a little difficult. It is something that you are dreading maybe. So I've had this several times, right? And I'm going to share two stories because I think they help to illustrate the picture. Have you ever had a situation where something difficult happened, right? And you're still working through it, and yet your life has been turned upside down. So back when, hello, Maya, back when I had a massive breakdown, it was suddenly very difficult for me to do normal everyday things like going to the grocery store or going out for dinner with a group of friends or family. And part of that was because I had massive cognitive impact, like my brain wasn't working properly. And so it was really challenging for me to even follow a conversation, especially the more stimulation there was, like simple things like going to the grocery store. It just made me freeze with a lot of anxiety. And because it seemed so simple, and I felt like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Like, why can't I go out for dinner? Why can't I go to the grocery store? Now, I had lots of other things physically challenging for me, but it was the mental chatter that really made it so much more difficult for me to just work through it. And so what I found myself doing was avoiding, right? Womp womp, hello, welcome. What's your channel about? I help female millionaires become I help female founders become millionaires. So I tend to talk about things that are of interest to me and my clients, things that I'm going through in my own day, but ultimately it's about business and money. And then the things that would get us tripped up, like making money, is sometimes requires us to do difficult things, right? So I'm not talking specifically about money or money-making activities today, but that tends to be some of the topics that I talk about. We are all the same. Yes, absolutely. So Are you talking about your miserable life? No, I'm not, because my life is amazing and wonderful. I'm talking about a situation where I've had to overcome, because I think we all have situations that we have to overcome. And I was talking about when I had a massive breakdown, that it was challenging for me to go to the grocery store. And so what I found myself doing was avoiding it. And yet at the same time, if I had just done it, right, then it would have made it less difficult. It would have made it less hard. And sometimes the things that we're avoiding are the things that are going to challenge us the most, but also provide the most growth. And at the time that we do them, it doesn't always feel that way. So this past weekend, we were having a Christmas party for my husband's work. And one of the women was unfortunately very sick. She's had a major health issue and is no longer working. But the point of this is that she could have very easily said, you know what, I don't feel very good. I'm going through a lot of treatments right now, and I don't look the same as I did when I last left work. And yet, in order for her to prove to herself that she could do hard things and that she could get through this, and that there was still a part of her that was still the same person, even though her circumstances had changed, she was able to come out. Now, was that difficult? Absolutely, because not everybody knew what was going on in her life. So it wasn't just the fact that she needed the energy and the stamina and all of the logistical pieces, but it was dealing with the stares and the questions and how people were going to treat her and all of these pieces. And so today I was going through something where it was something that in my mind I had made up to be like this big roadblock. And truthfully, I didn't want to do it. I had to do it. And so I was going to do it regardless. But there were 3 things that really helped me to work through this that I wanted to share today. So number 1, I made myself accountable. And the way that I did that was I shared with somebody else what I needed to do. So I needed to go live on another channel, and I didn't want to share the message that I was sharing. And because it was heavy, it was really heavy, and it wasn't very positive, right? I mean, it needed to be done, but I dreaded it. And so I didn't want to do it. Knowing myself, I know that if I tell somebody else that I have to do this, this is something that I'm holding myself accountable to, then I will honor my word. So, is there something that you have to do that you find challenge, difficult, uncomfortable, where you can build in some accountability for yourself? Can you tell somebody that will hold you to the fire and say, hey, did you do that thing? Right? And maybe you don't have that person. Maybe you use your reminders or some other way, a system that's going to help prompt you so that you can't avoid it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I've tried to break it down into smaller pieces, because sometimes it just feels too big. It feels like you're trying to scale a mountain. Now, the thing that I was doing wasn't really that big, but because I had so many other things that needed to get done, adding that one other piece to the puzzle just felt like, ugh, because I already had my day planned. So I wasn't prepared to do this extra piece that I knew now was a priority. So in order for that to happen, I needed to make it almost foolproof, like almost to the point where I couldn't fail to do the other things, including going live here, because I had made a commitment to myself that I'm going to go live every single day for 30 days. I'm just running an experiment. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to see what happens. And so that's what I've been doing. Now, it's 7:30 p.m. Pacific time where I live in the world. I don't know where you are in the world, right? But for me, it could have been very easy for me to say, it's late. We've had dinner. Like, I just want to sit on the couch. I need to go work out. I need to do all these other things. I'll just get to it tomorrow. But because I've already made myself accountable, it was much harder for me to then not show up. Number 2, because I had broken this down into smaller chunks. So as an example, in order for me to go live, I need to figure out the topic. Once I have the topic, then I need to figure out, like, how do I want to word the topic? Like the headline or what's that thing called? Like the title of it, so that it actually will relate to somebody who wants to be on here. Now, truthfully, I actually had a completely different topic lined up earlier today. And then as I was going through, this was the topic that was top of mind for me because it's something that I've just had to work through. And I know it's something that my clients have struggled with because not everything in life goes your way. Not everything in life is like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like perfectly planned out. That's not how life works. Even if you are super organized, even if you are ambitious and driven and committed and motivated, and you have a plan, plans go sideways sometimes. And that doesn't mean that you didn't plan well. It just means that life happens. So how do we navigate those so that we don't get sidetracked and we can get back on wherever it is that we want to get to? So that's why this topic bumped my original topic. Now, in my original topic, I had already done these bits and pieces throughout my day. And that way I knew that by the time I was ready to come on and do this live stream, that I would have, I have this checked, I have this checked. I kind of created a little bit of a mini system for myself. So I'm trying to make these pieces as easy and simple as possible. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So how do you overcome or do the thing that feels really, really, really big? One step at a time. And I know sometimes that we, especially when you are ambitious, that it can feel challenging to slow down. But the true sign of a champion, like Olympians will be the first to tell you that instead of doing 1,000 things, they really focus on what's the one thing that's really going to make the difference. And then they just keep doing that over and over and over again. Now, sometimes when you're doing difficult things, it's not just one thing, it's a whole bunch of these things. But the reality is that we don't do a bunch of things all at the same time. We do one thing at a time. And so if you can do one thing and kind of get that under your belt, then it makes it much easier for you to get to the next thing. So if you can break down the thing that feels so difficult and make them into micro steps, like almost to the point where, yeah, that was so simple. Like that was so easy. Now, I don't know what that looks like for you. So you have to determine, and sometimes it feels ridiculous because you might be thinking, well, that's like overkill. When you are stressed, when you have worries or fears or doubts or anxieties, when you are doing something that maybe you don't do frequently, or you do, but you don't really enjoy it, the smaller that you can make each step, the easier it is for you to do them. And the simpler it is for you to keep going, because you're going to trick your brain into saying, there's no way that I can not do that, right? So I'll give you another example. So this is taken from the book Kaizen, which is a Japanese concept, Kaizen or Zen, depending on where you are in the world. And that book, it's tiny, so if you love reading, I recommend that you read it. But it talks about continuous improvement, just 1 degree increase improvement every single day. And if we do that, the amount of change, because it compounds all the time, that the amount of change that you can expect is way higher than if you were trying to aim for 100 or 1,000% all at once. So when I was dealing with some health challenges, one of the things that I had committed to was I want to be healthier. And part of that was I'm going to take better care of myself. Now, one of the things that I was not doing consistently back then, this was almost a decade ago, was I hated flossing my teeth. And so because of that, that was my hard thing back then. I decided I'm going to floss my teeth. Now, inside of this book, Kaizen, it recommends that you, again, similar to what I'm sharing here, that you break it down into the smallest piece. So their recommendation was to floss one tooth, because it's almost impossible not to floss one tooth. But as you know, unless you're using one of those toothy picks, like once you take out a piece of floss, whether you're doing one or kind of all your teeth, there's a minimum of floss that you would take out. So by the time I started taking out the floss, I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this anyways, doing one tooth versus doing my whole tooth, like whole teeth in my mouth, I might as well just do all of them. And that's how things moved. Now, again, depending on what it is that you're doing, that micro step may quickly snowball like it did for me so that you can do all of it. Or like today, each micro step, I still had to stick with mine because it made it easier, especially because I had other things that I needed to get done. So if you find that your day is very full, and one of the things, especially if it may be like something unexpected, like you weren't planning to do this, and then all of a sudden you're having to do something that is more challenging, more difficult, or that you actually don't want to do, and so you kind of want to avoid it in the first place, then I'm going to recommend that this strategy of you breaking it down into bite-sized, like micro bite-sized pieces, and doing a little bit as you go along is going to make it much easier than chewing the whole thing all at once. Okay? And then the last thing is to make it a game. So number 3 is make it a game. Make it fun. Can you reward yourself after each little step, right? Can you make it so that it's a game? So how I did this was, because I'm already doing a live stream challenge for myself, not for any other reason, I had said, in order for me to do this, which was part of my game of like, I have a streak going, right? Like check, 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 check. And even though it's mental, I'm not actually keeping track on a piece of paper, that I am mentally seeing that there are days where I have gone live. And so I have this running check mark already. And in order for me to keep this running check mark going, I made it so that this video had to happen after the challenging thing, after the thing that I'm trying to avoid, or I would like to avoid, but I didn't, because I didn't want to have a blank space in my streak, in all of the tick marks of like, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it, and then to have, I didn't do it, only because I wanted to avoid this other thing. So I made it foolproof as much as I possibly could. And that meant that this video, which I normally like to do earlier in the day, got pushed back because I needed to manage my time differently in order to accommodate for the fact that there was something that happened in my day that I didn't necessarily want to do. And as a result, although I wasn't completely avoiding it, I needed to manage my time differently. I needed to break it down. So it took me longer overall, not because the task itself took a long time, but because I needed to kind of recalibrate and reallocate my attention and my focus and my energy and my overall just feeling good about it, to be honest, where I had to get up and up and up and up and kind of lift my spirits to the point where I could show up and then complete it. Does that make sense? So I want you to know that doing hard things and wanting to avoid doing hard things is a normal part of life. That's part of being a human being. And it doesn't matter how many times we do something, it tends to get easier over time when we practice, but a lot of times it's not because we want to do the thing, right? That it's sometimes just sheer willpower or determination or discipline, habit. And that's why habit forming is so challenging at times, because we need to get over the hump, so to speak. And so just because you see other people who are doing things and making it look easy doesn't always mean that it is easy for them to do the things that they're doing. It means that they are putting some of these strategies and maybe other ones. So if you have ones that might be helpful, put them down below in the comments for us. But I wanted to share these because I think sometimes it's very easy to judge ourselves and also inadvertently judging other people simply because we don't know the full story. And while I love being positive, and I think that is a beautiful way to go through life because it helps shape our future, it helps frame our perspective, and that is very important. I think it's equally important to understand that just because somebody has results or looks like they're winning at life doesn't mean they always feel like they are, and they may also be going through the exact same kind of mental clutter that you are going through, because ultimately we are all the same. We are human beings. Does this make sense? Right? So my feelings get hurt, your feelings get hurt. I get tired, you get tired. I get hungry, you get tired. Like, do you see what I mean? So thinking that somebody else is superhuman simply because they do hard things all the time and you think that, well, it must not be hard for them. I guarantee it's still hard for them. It's still difficult for them. They still face challenges. They are just better equipped and or they have more practice so they can do it faster, meaning the length of time that it takes them to get over the difficulty, to work through it, instead of it taking days, weeks, months, sometimes years, right, to work through that, that instead it's shortcut, it's condensed. And that means that they can keep going and keep going and keep going more frequently, faster. And as a result, it looks like it's easier for them. But I'm hoping that the 3 strategies that I've shared with you today are going to be really helpful in order to move you through and allow you to maneuver or overcome the things that you might be avoiding, the things that you might be challenged with, the things that might feel really hard to do or more difficult, especially as we come up on a time of year where it can present some highs, it can also present some lows for people, right? The holidays are often a time where people are reflecting and you might have some regret, you might have some feelings or angst around what you didn't accomplish, what you have yet to accomplish. You might be feeling the time crunch and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I have to get all of these things done. These are all arbitrary, right? Like you don't have to wait until January 1st to do whatever it is that you want. Do it now. And if it's difficult because you've been avoiding it, then I'm hopeful that these 3 strategies might be helpful for you. So I'm trying to remember what I had talked about. Usually I have notes here. So today, let's see if we can go backwards and then maybe it'll come to me as we do a quick recap. And if I don't get to it, just please give me some grace, because as I mentioned, when you're working through difficult things, it takes out of you, right? So number 1, I want you to hold yourself accountable. And for me, the easiest way to do that is to tell somebody. Number 2 is to break it down into micro steps, like even smaller than you think that you might need to make it, ridiculously so, to the point where you go, well, I couldn't fail at doing that. That's the point. Because when you make it so easy that you couldn't fail, then you are much more likely to get it done. And then the 3rd one is to make it a game, right? Make it a game, make it fun. And I know that sometimes when you're doing something that feels difficult, challenging, hard, like you don't want to do it, that could be the last thing on your mind. But I'm hopeful that the strategy that I gave you, where I knew that there was something that I wanted to do, which was show up for you here, was something that I did not want to miss, because I have a running streak right now. I have a running check mark of how many times I've been able to come live and hold myself accountable to a different challenge, that while it is difficult, it's not something that I want to avoid, right? It's stretching me beyond my comfort zone and helping me to develop into a better version of myself, helping me to learn something. And as a result, that was kind of like my reward, right? And so however you need to gamify it for yourself, that's how I did it for myself. I said, I have to do this live. I don't want to break my winning streak, meaning like the times that I've showed up, I have kind of like a running tally in my mind of like check. And so the thing that I'm kind of avoiding, but not really, I just am dragging my heels a little bit. It's taking me a little bit longer and it's causing some anxiety, like it's causing just some feelings in there that needs to happen before I can do this. That way I'm incentivized to do the thing that I don't want to do. And then I use the other 2 strategies that I've shared with you in order to make it easier for me to do it. It still wasn't easy. It still felt hard. It still was something that I'd rather not do, but I still did it. And as a result, I could show up here and I could do it without guilt, shame, blame, remorse, regret. like, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like, it's done, and I'm glad it's done. And now I get to focus on this, and now I'm going to be done so that I can get ready for a new day tomorrow, because you plan for tomorrow today, right? So however you're going to end today is going to set the tone for tomorrow. So today, I want you to know that you can do hard things, and that if you are able to set yourself up for success by allowing yourself to see how you can get those things done, maybe one of these 3 strategies is going to be helpful for you. And if one of them is something that you're going to be using, I would love to know in the comments below. Just put 1, 2, or 3, like whichever one that you've chosen. Or if you have a different one that might be helpful for somebody else who is also working through some things, then feel free to add them below. As always, if you have any questions, I'm just going to wait for a couple seconds here because I know it's an odd time. But if you have a question for me, you can add them below. And if I happen to miss you for whatever reason, or you're on the replay and you have a question for me, please feel free to add it down below. And I'm more than happy to answer either in the comments, or I'll pick that up for a future video conversation. So if it's easier for you to reach me, you can always send me a DM over on Instagram. I am at Susan McVeigh. So you can, same as my handle here. And if you need foundational building blocks to build your wealth, you can grab my ebook, ABCs of Building Wealth, and that is going to be in the video description somewhere here, and or the description for my video channel. So I don't see any questions. Again, if you happen to be on here later, or you just caught me and you do have a question after you watch this, then feel free to add that below. It does take a little bit for YouTube to render the live streams and put them back up. So just be aware of that. And with that, we will talk to you again very soon. Thanks so much, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.